let's talk real for a minute. Let's talk about Bricks and Minifigs, right? All the YouTube stuff that RecklessBen's been putting out, and the controversy over all the Legos. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also called Mormons. I am also a convicted felon. As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we try and do what's right. That's what we're taught, and most members abide by it. Based on the video footage of multiple members of the church that were in that video that did wrong. They lied and cheated many people and thought they could get away with it because they did not legally sign the contract with the individual, Mr. Mansell. That's dishonest, and it's not something that, I can stand by. Let's talk about me for a minute. So my felony, I did not know was wrong. I broke a federal law. It was a Sherman Act violation, which is an antitrust law. I was in the course of running my business, Techaway of Texas, I was purchasing government assets that were surplus computers, and I had an individual contact me, and he asked me if I wanted to work with him on this project, and I didn't have any desire to. I mean, I didn't need him. I could handle it myself. I was outbidding him on most stuff, and so I really didn't need to. Had no desire to, but he was pretty persistent in it and kept contacting me, and so eventually, in order to just stop the persistence, I agreed to it. And he had this in place with another individual too, and then as we are purchasing stuff, there's another buyer that comes in and ends up buying some stuff, and so he contacts that bidder too and tries to work out a deal with him also. So originally I had heard the term bid rigging, but I didn't know exactly what it meant, and a quick Google search only talks about construction and bid rigging in construction projects and whatnot, and so I didn't know that what I had agreed to was even wrong. But I eventually that fourth individual contacted the GSA, which is the I think Government Services Administration or something like that, and he contacted their OIG, their Office of the Inspector General, and they started an investigation. This was 2017, I think, is when it was happening mostly. So in that time frame, I purchased about $65,000 worth of government assets. The volume that I actually did with this other individual, where we worked together on something, was probably about $7,000 or $8,000. And the rest of it was stuff that I had purchased on my own, and worked because he decided there wasn't enough money in it at that price, but I was still fine buying it at that price. There was still plenty of money in it for me. And so, over $7,000 essentially is what the government lost by me doing that. I received a felony antitrust violation. This case started in 2018 when my house was raided. So it was about 6:30 in the morning. I was in the bathroom, going to the bathroom, and my wife tells me that, hey, police are at the door and they want to talk to you. and they say, you know what it'll, you'll know what it's about. And so I had no idea what it was about. So I hurried up, went to the bathroom, finished the bathroom, went to the front door, and he asked me if I knew a certain individual, and I'd mentioned, yeah, and so they initiated a search warrant. So who was at the door when I got there? There was one OIG agent from the GSA that was from Chicago, which is where the investigation originated from. Then there were, I think, 3 OIG agents from DFW, and then they flew in 2 computer forensics agents from Washington, D.C. They, made copy of my hard drive, my phone, set me down and talked to me about this. Now, I had never been in trouble in my life, and so I had no problem talking to them. I was like, yeah, I was never read my rights. I was never Mirandized because I wasn't under arrest, and they told me I could leave at any time. But someone who's never been in trouble has no idea what that means, and you're always taught to cooperate with the police and law enforcement, and that's not always the best decision, honestly. As far as in situations like this, it's best to just keep your mouth shut and get an attorney and go from there. So after they left, I didn't have my phone during this whole time because they were copying it and stuff. So my wife had let my mom know what was going on. She was a legal secretary for a law firm, and her boss had previously done some criminal law, and he said, he told her to tell me not to talk to him. But I didn't get my phone back until after all this. My wife had gone to take the kids to school and everything, and so I was just there sitting at the kitchen table talking to these agents, and the agents there are like, this normally isn't a big deal. You'll probably get probation, or I don't even think they said that. They made it sound like it wasn't going to be anything, wasn't going to be a felony, and it was just going to be a slap on the wrist, basically. So later that day or next week or whatever, I got a referral, and I contacted an attorney in Minnesota, and him and his firm represented me through this case. So this case lasted from 2018 until 2022 or 2023. I can't remember. I think it was 2023 probably when I finally got sentenced. So during that whole time, I put 10 grand down for a retainer on this attorney, and then over the course of those 5 years spent at least another $50,000 in attorney's fees fighting this case where I didn't make $50,000 to begin with on it, and in the end, I got sentenced to 30 days probation, federal probation. That my attorney's like, man, that's unheard of. He's like, I was trying to get it where you didn't have anything after this, because I was on pretrial probation for 4 years, which really didn't mean a whole lot in my instance. I talked to my pretrial probation officer maybe once every year or something, maybe 4 times total over the whole time I was on pretrial probation, other than the couple of times when I was in Minnesota and had to see her. So I'm in Texas. Whole case is based out of Minnesota because that's where the server that the website was on was in Minnesota. So I had to travel to Minnesota for this case and do most of it all up there and everything. So I knew when everything was explained to me, I realized that what I did was wrong, and I took responsibility for it. So that's the big thing. We are all human. We will all make mistakes, but it's what you do with those mistakes that matter. In the case of Bricks and Minifigs, I do not see any responsibility being taken. Like I said, taking responsibility for your actions is the key to this whole life, realistically. You know, learning self-control and taking responsibility for what you've done. You can only grow if you take responsibility. You know, you have to admit when you're wrong and do what's right. So in this case, these guys, you know, the CEO was caught lying multiple times. I think he knew exactly what happened and saw the money and realized that he could probably get some of it, and I think that's part of it with him. I think he was complicit. With the other two individuals, they blatantly knew what was going on and thought they could skirt around it because they are not the ones that signed the agreement with the gentleman. Let's talk about Utah for a minute. So I'm in Texas. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I own my own business, and Utah is not where I would want to live. I think what was shown in the documentary is fairly accurate. I think the people, the members of the church, look out for other members of the church the best that they can and shield them the best they can, which can be good and bad. It depends what side of that you're on, I guess. I look at the Jewish people and how they help each other, and I think that kind of is how it is in Utah a little bit. I don't know how else to explain it, but I don't think it's right. I think it can go both ways. I think you can piss off the wrong people, and it can cause great distress in Utah. Or you can be guys like these that are wealthy and contributing members of society in general. So they're members of the church, they've got money, and everybody knows them. And so in Utah, that automatically adds credibility. They only see what goes on in the spotlight. They don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and that's the way it is lots of places, but I think it's magnified there. But nobody's perfect. So I think these guys should be held accountable. I think that RecklessBen has given a good view of what happened, that he didn't edit it to, he edited it to shine light on the situation and what actually happened. He's been forthcoming. I think those police stations, I think American Fork police stations redacted a bunch of stuff they shouldn't have. And Provo going after RecklessBen instead of going after Bricks and Minifigs, I think that's a mistake. I think it's a bias on the part of the investigators, as well as a bias on the police station, the police chief. If you look at the police chief for American Fork and the ridiculous statement he put out, I mean, he's protecting people that shouldn't be protected. Everything they did to RecklessBen when he's trying to shine light on stuff that's going wrong isn't right, and it happens like that a lot in government. unfortunately. So this is just some of my view as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as a business owner. Even though, even I make mistakes. I'm human. I have made mistakes. That's why I'm a felon. But I'm trying to learn from them. I'm trying to be better because of it. And I think if they want to continue a successful business, then they need to go ahead and fess up to what happened and speak truth sooner rather than later. And I think that's the best for everybody. I remember I went to school at BYU Idaho, which is the smaller version of BYU Provo, and I remember one of my classes I took up there, teacher asked if we would raise our kids in quote Mormondom, which is Utah essentially, or if you were going to raise them outside of there. And 100% right then I told them outside of there that, the guy breaking the law or smoking pot or whatever is going to be the guy at church with them who's faking what he's doing. He's putting on a show while he's at church instead of, and it's just at church. When he leaves church, it's a different story. So the key is to try to not be that way. Try and act one way, whether you're at church or whether you're outside of church. There's no difference in the person you are. There should not be a difference in the person you are. So whether that's in business, whether that's in your other actions, you should be the same person everywhere. Just to clarify, what I was mentioning about Utah is about the people in Utah, not the church. The church, as far as I'm concerned, is true, and it's God's true church on the earth. But the people, no matter who they are, that are members of any church, are people, and they make mistakes, and can sometimes be one-sided, and want the best for others that may be of their faith.